Good morning, everyone. Happy Monday. Oh boy, lots to talk about. This weekend, I feel like a lot was going on between this image I have right here of Ruby Franke and her new documentary, or the documentary about her on Hulu, The Devil in the Family, Jeffrey Epstein, the complete failure uh, of these filings, the phase one, whatever the hell that was supposed to be, and the Oscars, which were actually decent. And then Tot Mom. I mean, I'm in shock, guys. I'm in shock. So, hello to my favorites in the chat. Hello, Sheila, Sue, Afton, Carrie. Hi, Simon. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I just have so much to say right now. It's tough. I don't even know where to begin. But let's start with the Oscars because I feel like I have the least to say about the Oscars. The Oscars were actually uneventful. Hey, Stella, good to see you. Super uneventful, if you ask me. And I was pleasantly surprised at a couple things. So Conan as the host, I mean, I think he has great presence. He didn't try too hard. He wasn't trying to be super funny. It was pretty simple, and he's a true professional. So I was happy with that. But one of my favorite parts was, and I posted this on YouTube and on TikTok, but was of course Adam Sandler doing his Chalamet voice. I mean, it's so great because he's just not a pretentious guy. Adam Sandler, they made light of his outfits. I don't even want to say he's the John Fetterman of Hollywood because he started this first. Adam Sandler was the true OG with the sweatpants and everything. But yeah, that was one of my favorite parts. And you know what I also loved? And listen, I'll tell you some of my picks. You know what? Let me pull, I'll take this off the screen and I'll share with you an Oscars website just to go through a couple things with the winners. Okay, so Kieran Culkin, I loved his speech. He won Best Supporting Actor for Real Pain. Hey, Diana, good to see you. So he won Best Supporting Actor for Real Pain. I really was rooting for Jeremy Strong, you guys. I don't know if you saw The Apprentice, but Jeremy Strong played Roy Cohn. And I have a weird, twisted fascination with Roy Cohn. If you are not familiar with Roy Cohn, I don't know why I'm saying his name like Roy Cohn, with Roy, with Cohn, whatever. If you're not familiar, you should look him up. He was a lawyer, a fixer, very much embedded in the underbelly of New York City and just the darkness and politics and in business. And he was a closeted homosexual, and he essentially died of AIDS. But there's this really famous interview. Oh, hey, MJ, good to see you. There's a really famous interview with him and Mike Wallace. Well, where Mike Wallace literally point blanks asked Roy Cohn, "Do you have AIDS?" And he's like, "No, it's liver cancer." It's classic. But yeah, Jeremy Strong was so good as Roy Cohn in The Apprentice, and he did not win. Kieran Culkin won for his role in Real Pain. And I mean, he was really good in that. And his speech, Kieran Culkin's speech, I thought was amazing. He talked about his wife and how his wife promised him more kids, 4 kids, if he won an Oscar. And I noticed he did what I do. He has like a thing with his hair, a nervous thing where he kept touching his hair. And I was like, oh, look, it's not just me. It's not just me. So take that for what it is. But like I said, I really don't have too much to say. Zoe Saldana, she's a great actress. I was happy she won. Her speech was intense. I was like, whoa, take it down a notch, Zoe. I mean, I get it. It's a huge deal. Really happy for her, but I was like, yeah, take it down a notch. Is that mean? I hope it's not too mean. What else? Going down. Okay. Adapted screenplay, fine. Conclave. That movie was fine. Okay. This is what I want to talk about. So Sean Baker, Honora. So if you're not aware, Honora swept. Okay. Honora swept. And wait, Sheila, sorry, I'm going to go here. What do you mean the Bond thing? I mean, so Amazon, Bezos, they bought basically MGM Plus and spent like $8 million. So they have the rights to the Bond movies, if that's what you mean. Did I miss something? I don't know. But I just want to go back. So Honora, if you haven't seen that, It swept. I mean, I was thrilled because I think if you guys saw, I had said that's my pick for best picture, but I don't think it'll win. I think maybe something like Wicked would win or something, but it didn't. I was pleasantly surprised. And then Mikey Madsen won for, or Madison won for best actress. She was great in that movie. And this is Sean Baker, the director. They also won, he won best director and it won best screenplay. So I wanted to say something about Sean Baker that I really appreciated about him and about his speech. If you watched it, Sean Baker actually took the time, took that platform that he had to talk about the film industry. And he advocated for movie theaters. And he said, look, we've lost over 1,000 movie theaters, since COVID. We should be going to see movies in the theaters. This is where, the magic happens. And we need this to keep the film industry alive. And I was like, wow. This is incredible. For once, somebody actually gets it. He's saying things, relevant things, and he's talking to people in his industry. And I'm like, this is what you're supposed to do. You're not supposed to get up there and talk about politics and all of that. I mean, read the room. And I felt like he did. So I was super thrilled about that. And look, it was actually very light on politics. I didn't hear anything for once, which was, I thought, amazing. Adrian Brody got kind of close. I thought he was a little obnoxious when he's like, I've done this before. And I was kind of upset about that. I was like, you don't really need to be so arrogant, but he did kind of go down that, I really wish for world peace type of shit. I was like, okay, enough. But yeah, but no, Sean Baker, I was really, really impressed with. I really like what he had to say. And yeah, so let me see, Sheila. Oh, you didn't understand why they were celebrating Bond. Was it just, yeah, I thought it was basically, I thought that they had spent so much money that they're like, okay, we need to really showcase James Bond. And there was something else that they own too. I'm drawing a blank, but the rights to something that's a very big deal. I don't know, it's Monday. Please forgive me. But yes, thank you, MJ. He was gross. Adrian Brody was just so pukey. And I love The Pianist. I love that movie. And I thought he really deserved to win. I didn't see The Brutalist. I'll be perfectly honest with you guys. Did not see that. That movie is 3.5 hours. I don't know if I'm down for that. Especially since Adrian Brody was just so unlikable last night. And I did not realize he is dating Georgina Chapman, and that's Harvey Weinstein's ex. Didn't realize that, but he is, and they seemed really in love. He threw her his gum, and she was like so excited to get up there and catch that nasty, chewed up, old, dry gum. I was like, that's good for you. Good for you guys, before I say anything. Yeah. So yes, Afton, that is so true. It is okay. I think I need a couple days then maybe. And you guys, if you watch me, you know me. I don't like long, drawn out events. So a 3.5 hour movie, I'm kind of like, let's see. But yeah, the gum throwing was wild. But yeah, overall, I was surprised. There really was not too much to say about the Oscars. Yeah, no, I love the performance by Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo. Cynthia Erivo, she looks very thin. I don't necessarily want to focus on, women's weights or women's bodies, but I was a little alarmed. But also, if you saw the headlines after the SAG Awards, it seemed like Ozempic was everywhere, and Demi Moore looked a little better. She didn't look as gaunt, I guess. But anyway, is there anything else that I'm missing with the Oscars that anime? Yeah, that stuff is kind of boring to me. Okay, Brutalist won Best Cinematography. Costume design, Paul Tazewell. I love him. He does a lot of Broadway designs too. I believe he designed the costumes for Hamilton, Paul Tazewell. But anyway, yeah, I think we can close the door on. Oh, yeah, wait. Film editing. I thought that was interesting with Anora. I loved Anora. Don't get me wrong. I just didn't see anything groundbreaking about their editing, but what do I know? All right, let's close the door on the Oscars. Oh, this guy, original score for The Brutalist. Sorry, my husband and we were watching the Oscars and he walked off stage with his award and I was like, dude, that guy's been through it. I don't know if anyone noticed, but what's his name? His name is Daniel Blumberg. Very happy for him, but he kind of reminded me of a guy that kind of beats himself up, like has a really bad day and makes mistakes and he sits on his bed and he's like, oh, and he whips himself with like a belt. I don't know, maybe not, but that was probably too intense. But yeah, he just looks like he's been through it. So I was like, man, give this guy a win, give this guy an Oscar that he can look at, but he's probably not even happy with the Oscar. He just seems like that kind of person. All right, now I'm really just I'm shutting the door here on the Oscars. We're done. Let's just quickly spend less than a minute on Tot Mom, Casey Anthony. I'm shocked. I'm appalled. I think TikTok should kick her off. I think Substack should not allow her to claim that she is a legal advocate, literally a legal advocate. I mean, my mind is blown. Yeah, I mean, oh wait, hold on. I can see the chat is still on the Oscars. Do you guys want to keep talking about it? Because I totally will. The cost of Anora was so low. Can't lie. Haven't seen a damn one of the films, MJ. That's okay. Anora was good. I really enjoyed it. Yes. And it cost $6 million to make. You missed the Oscars, Simon, but really glad that Flo won Best Animated. I didn't actually see that. I'll have to check that out though. But yes, no, I am. And you know what? I should play. So when I did a lot of entertainment and actually only entertainment, I think it was the 2020 Oscars. Oh, yes, it was the year that what was that movie? It was the international movie Parasite. It was the year that movie won. I did interviews with the cast of Parasite, with the director. I think we affectionately referred to him as Bong Hive. With him, I had Laura Dern from that Noah Baumbach, what's that Baumbach movie? With Adam Driver, Marriage Story. I had everybody that year. I should go back and look at some of those interviews because that was fun. I was so into it then. But yeah, not so much this year. But okay, yes, very quickly, back to Casey Anthony. If you are not aware, she made a TikTok and a Substack, and she's like, I've been advocating and doing this type of legal work since 2011. Nobody asked. Literally, it's because you moved in with your lawyer and he somehow felt bad for you and like gave you a job, I guess. Who knows? But again, I'm not even going to give her the time and play any of this clip just because it was so offensive to me. It was so offensive to my core. I can't imagine why you wouldn't want to just hide out and not draw attention to yourself. I mean, read the room. Literally, read the room. Shut up. You literally got away with, in my opinion, she got away with a heinous, unspeakable crime. And I'm not saying I think her parents are guiltless, right? But she also said some pretty unspeakable, heinous things about her parents as well, specifically her dad, to try to get out of this, in my opinion. And I don't know who would allow her and tell her that this is acceptable. Yes, you are an advocate. You are a legal advocate. She actually said in the video she wants to be a voice for the voiceless. I have no words. I have no words. She also said something like, get used to my car. I don't even know, something really offensive when it's like Kaylee Anthony was in the trunk of her car. I mean, it's almost like I need Jack Fox here of Never a Truer Word to go through these statements that she's made and sort of connect it to what I feel like is her guilt, my opinion. I know. Thank you, Sheila. Yes, exactly. MJ, your daughter was voiceless. It's sickening to me. And I was trying to go through it with my dad this morning, and he's like, so, what do you think happened? What do you think happened to Kaylee Anthony? and how was the father involved? And look, I go back and forth about the parents. I definitely think her parents knew something. I do. I think her parents knew something. I think when I say I think the parents possibly were in on it, I just think that they kept this a secret and they protected their daughter. That's what I think. But I do 100% think that uh, Casey drugged her daughter with and she overdosed on Xanax because Casey didn't want to be a mother. She wanted to party. She was too young. And yeah, that's what I think. I go back to 30 days. Literally, your granddaughter and your daughter, she's not 30 days and you don't report it to police. You don't seem concerned. You don't seem, I mean, what? Literally, no. No, no, no. And I should find this. It's so funny when these things start resurfacing or people like Casey Anthony start resurfacing. A bunch of my old videos or my old clips will get hit, so they'll start getting some traction again. And I remember I did this hit. It was on Fox. I think I have 15 seconds of it that I can play. And it's so funny. I don't know how I was allowed to say this stuff like on and don't, okay, just again, I always go back to this. I used to focus a lot on entertainment, not so much crime and legal stuff. So, yeah, I am surprised that I was allowed to say some of this stuff, but here is about, let me find this short, about 15 seconds of what I said about her family. I'll go down. But yeah, I'm like, wow. How did I not get in trouble for this? That's kind of interesting. Oh my gosh, how many shorts do I post, guys? I'm like, this goes way, way down, way down. I mean, I could try to find it on my TikTok, but okay, here it is. Okay. I'll share this really quick. Hey there. Thanks for joining. All right. This was an old, let me make myself smaller. It's a really short one. Like I said, I just did nice nice face, Lauren. But again, I just can't believe I was allowed to say this on the air. Hold on, let me see. Okay.
Also think Cindy Anthony played a part in it because again, if you're these doting grandparents, why are you not saying more after 31 days? You just believe that Kaylee's at a friend's house or she's at this non-existent nanny's house? No, something is fishy and the entire family is dirty and in on it. Also,
Okay. Yeah. So somehow I was allowed to say that. Yeah, I was allowed to say the entire family is in on it and they're all dirty. I should have maybe said in my opinion because I don't have proof that the entire family is in on it. Again, my opinion, but man, I'm a little aggressive, I guess, and I get mad. But thank you so much. Thank you for that. I will I will take that. All right. So let's get into, I want to save Ruby Frankie for last. So let's get into Epstein for a minute or for a few because this, I don't want to say that I was expecting this, but I have been saying this for years that I believe we most likely won't see the entirety of these files. I mean, it seems very convenient that someone like Marsha Blackburn, Tennessee senator, has been asking for these, and she gets all this great press that, oh, Marsha Blackburn is stepping up and asking for these files and blah blah blah. You know what? Let me make this banner Jeffrey Epstein, so people know. Yeah, so I always thought that was pretty convenient that Martha Blackburn, made this her whole mission. I mean, it's just like, yes, we can all be banging on pots and pans saying, show us the list, but it's more than that. So what we saw during phase 1 of the Epstein release was, it was horseshit. Sorry, it was. There's a lot of things about this. So it was the flight logs, just handwritten crayon flight logs, basically. And by the way, those were available during Ghislaine's trial. So those were made public years ago. And then the contact list is kind of just like, that means nothing to me. That doesn't indicate nefarious activity. You can't prove anything with that. It would never hold up in court. It's silly. And then there was the redacted masseuse list. And I mean, are they just trying to show us that this amount there? I think there was like 5 pages of just redacted names, where I'm like, are you just trying to show us that there was X many victims and there was a ton of victims? I'm a little confused at why this is even included. I'm going to share this tab right now. Let me take this down. Yeah, I'm just a little confused at why we're being shown this. And then we've got the evidence list, which was incredibly vague, and it did not go into any type of detail. It was like ropes, hard drives, laptops. Got it. What was on the hard drive? Everybody knows this is what they found. And I mean, there are Palm Beach police affidavits that are way more detailed than anything that came out in this quote phase 1. Oh, hey, Oasis, good to see you. So yeah, it brings me back to Pam Bondi, and she was on Jesse Waters earlier last week, and she had said, and I know I've probably, if you follow me, I've discussed this ad nauseum, but it's just part of paying attention to people's statements and their words. She said, the entire file is on my desk. And she said, quote, it's pretty sick. I feel like that is an anticlimactic comment surrounding documents that disclose the prosecution and the details of the most prolific pedo of our time. That's how I felt. There was a couple hundred pages on her desk, and she thought that maybe 100 or so pages, whatever it was, 200 pages, that was it. And she thought just saying, meh, it's pretty sick. It's pretty sick. She thought that was valid and sufficient enough to convince the American people that, 1, she read the documents, that 2, she wasn't blowing smoke up our, and wait, you know what? I want to say something else, because do I think this should be a priority for the current administration? No, I don't. I don't think the Epstein files should be a priority right now, but they made it a priority, clearly. Do I think Pam Bondi has other more important stuff to do? Yeah, I do. However, she went about yapping and bragging and boasting. So here we are, okay? Here we are. Yeah. Are we asking for the files? Are we asking for MLK, for JFK? Yeah. But I mean, we can wait. We've waited long enough. So this whole thing, I'm just like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Yes, not a priority. Yeah, I'm reading some of these comments. So I'll share with you what I put out on popcrime.tv on Friday. So Bernard Carrick, he is, thank you so much. I appreciate you being here. Bernard Carrick, he is the former NYPD police commissioner. He's a Trump advisor. And I used to work with him at a radio station, and he's become a friend. And I hit him up on Friday, and I'm like, look, just be real with me. What the is going on? Because Bernard Carrick, I'll scroll down here. He's very close with Kash Patel. So that's Bernard Bald, Kash Patel. And by the way, if you guys don't know Bernie Carrick, oh boy, you should. He is, he's a badass if you ever saw one, as in like he has a book and it's called From Jailer to Jailed, because he actually went to prison over and look, it's a crazy thing, but it was for paying his nanny under the books. But I think that they were looking for whatever they could to lock him up. But yeah, he's a crazy story. So yeah, so I hit up Bernie and I'm like, what's going on? Like, what is Pam Bondi? Is she trying to like what's up? And he was very much like, this has nothing to do with Kash Patel. He's gonna get to the bottom of it. He said it has to do with James Dennehy from the New York Field Division of the FBI. He says they're protecting somebody, and you know, this needs to end with someone either getting fired or walking out of that building in New York in handcuffs. And I'm like, okay, got it. That's fine. I mean, he didn't give me a ton of information, but he basically said he can't speak for Bondi. He has no idea what she read, if she read anything, but what he can speak for is that it's not Kash Patel. And he made me feel good about Kash and saying, look, he's been on the job for 4 days, but he's got this. He's got this. So I'm like, all right. Now I got to play you guys a video because this pissed me off so bad. So bad. So this is for another time, another topic, but I'm not sure at this point. Mizu Mom asked about Grant and Gracie Solomon. I love to jump around, my ADD. I did have a podcast called Corruption, What Happened to Grant Solomon. And I was very connected and close to that case. It got really difficult, me being here and the case being in Tennessee. And I felt like there wasn't a lot more I could do until an accident recon happened or an exhumation. And so, yeah, but that's for another time, another topic. But I appreciate you asking. And I hope that Angie and Gracie are doing well. But okay, so just back to this. Let me share this with you. I retweeted this. This is my profile on Twitter. Gosh, I tweet so much that I'm like, okay. This was Laura Loomer. Let me show you this. I'm going to share this tab and I'm going to see if I can speed it up a little bit, just a little bit, because there's a couple things that you guys should hear. And this interview, by the way, totally pointless, told us nothing new. If anything, I mean, I can see through her fluff and her lies right here, but it's kind of like when I mean, personally, like I guess I'm a independent libertarian. I do have a lot of conservative values, but I also, I don't care what you want to be called. I'll call you whatever you want. I don't, whatever. But I do take issue when parties cannot criticize their own parties. So when we had Joe Biden and Kamala Harris as a president, and Democrats are like, what? They're amazing. They're amazing. I'm like, oh my God, come on. Like really, like you have to be, you have to be honest with yourself. So here I'm kind of like, look, you have to be honest. You have to be able to be nuanced enough to, like I said, to criticize your own party constructively. You really do. And in my opinion, Mark Levin, and I like Mark Levin, this was not his best work, his best interview here. So this is with Pam Bondi, and I'll play it for you. And there's a few things that I'm like, oh my gosh. And again, when you watch Fox or when you watch CNN, you will see a lot of talking heads. They have a lot of catchphrases. They have a lot of just buzzwords that really hit home with their audience, but truly it means nothing. I remember, I think I was on a show and somebody said about me, I hate reading the comments, but I did read the comments. And someone said something about me like, oh, Lauren seems like she did a lot of pageants where she doesn't trip up on her words, but she has nothing substantial to say. And that's how I feel sometimes when I watch CNN or I watch Fox and you've got this talking head that's really not saying anything. They're just saying the buzzwords. They're just like, yeah, this is, the Democrat, it's whatever. Okay, I'll just play it and I'll stop talking. But anyway, all right.
America, we're here with, and I'm very excited about this, Attorney General Pam Bondi, a good friend, especially a good friend of my wife, but a wonderful lady, a great lawyer. Welcome to the program, Madam Attorney General. I want to get into this Epstein thing a little bit. I think the American people are very curious about who's on this list or these lists. You have been doggedly trying to get all the information.
Doggedly.
And now we learn, thanks to you, that you've been stonewalled by people in New York. Do you want to explain that?
Yes, Mark. So as you know, we released about 120 pages of documents, and I started asking for these documents right when I came into office and before Kash Patel was in there. So I ended up getting about 120 pages. We carefully redacted them, of course, to be sure the 254 young girls, women who are victims of sex crimes and sex.
Okay, we carefully redacted them. So all you did was redact 5 pages of a masseuse list. It was literally titled masseuse list. How is that carefully redacting them when you just blocked off the pages? And also, are we supposed to pat you on the back for that? That's not, this shouldn't even be discussed. This goes without saying. So that strike one, you're fluff talking. You're making no sense. Nobody cares. No one's giving you a pat on the back for this.
Sex trafficking, their personal information was redacted and out of there to protect them. So I'm going through it and I kept saying, there has to be more. There has to be more. I'm assured that's it. Kash asked the same questions. Assured there's no more. I found out, this week that a source told me New York, SDNY, they're sitting on thousands of pages of documents regarding Epstein. Thousands. And of course, you've seen the very strong.
Sorry. So can we go back to that? A source told her. A source? I mean, you're the attorney general. You're literally the attorney general. Why do you need a source? Why do you need a source to tell you something that's going on within the FBI? I'm shook. Sorry, guys. Did Pam Bondi think really there was only 120 pages and she needed a source to yeah, no. No. Okay, sorry. I will stop. I will stop. What? A source told me. No. Okay. Back to it. Sorry.
Wrong letter. We will get everything. We will have it in our possession. We will redact it, of course, to protect grand jury information and confidential witnesses, but the American people have a right to know. And Donald Trump is the most transparent president in our nation's history. So not only will America get the full Epstein files, they will get JFK, they will get Martin Luther King.
Well, that's fantastic. But I assume the Southern District of New York is or has been holding on to this information for a reason. That is, they don't like the names on the list. And of course, we know New York is a hotbed of the Democrat Party, and that includes in legal circles. Do you think that's part of the issue here, that they're trying to protect a lot of names and individuals?
Mark, I have not.
I can't. Okay. This was, guys, only in the Democratic Party do pedos exist. What? Yes, that's exactly right, Mark Levin. And this is where you lost me, bro. This is where you lost me. Do you think that New York is holding on to these documents so they can redact and take out all the Democrats' names? I mean, dude, I hate to break it to you. There are sick individuals on both sides of the aisle. Pedos, they don't discriminate, okay? Do you not realize, Mark Levin, how many cases of child abuse, child molestation happens in church, in the pulpits, and in the pews, and within the Republican Party? This is something, I mean, look, I think there's lots of problems in the Democratic Party. Everybody knows that about me. But this, don't get me started. Do not sit there and blame one side. I'm not about that life. I mean, I just feel like this is crazy. Yeah, like I can't. And you don't have to keep your opinion to yourself, Carrie. I like all opinions here. And like I said, I consider myself as a right-leaning woman. But for someone to sit there and say that pedos don't exist, it just goes back to me saying, if you can't criticize your own party, you got problems, you got issues, because there is so much wrong here. But yeah, I'll let them continue for a bit longer. Let me know if you want me to make this faster, guys. I think I have it on 1.4 or something like that. But yeah.
Reviewed the information yet. And as a lawyer, as a prosecutor, I want to review everything before I make a firm conclusion. But I think it's very interesting that they withheld that from us. And I will find out who withheld it, and they will not be working for us anymore.
So once all that's gathered, you're just going to put it out in the public with the obvious necessary redactions, including the people who were the victims and the phone numbers and so forth. But for the perpetrators, I assume that we'll see those names. Yes.
Well, certainly, there's nothing can be withheld on that. Of course, as you know, grand jury information, anything confidential will be withheld under the law. And we're going to do everything in our power to protect the victims so they're not further victimized also.
Let me ask you a question kind of in this vein, and it may be too early to know because you just got to the Department of Justice. This guy, Jack Smith, his team of lawyers and so forth and so on.
All right. I don't want to get like a copyright strike or anything. That's kind of boring. I mean, she did admit like she's not going to say anything about the names when he tried to say, oh, is it the Democrats trying to like take their names off? Yeah. She said she hasn't read it, so she can't speak to that. Fine. I agree with that. But just the whole, they'll be fired. This is just not, it's not news. It's not interesting. And it's not giving us any information. I forget if she says anything else that's redeeming or if he does, but I don't think so.
What we're looking at now, we're going through all of that. And now that I just got Kash Patel in as FBI director, he's of course a tremendous help. I've been in office, barely 2 weeks, and it feels like 2 years. We are going nonstop. We will get to the bottom of that. And as you know, the first thing I did was fire the Jack Smith team. That was the ultimate weaponization of our country and our government.
Okay, fine, whatever. Okay, so, oops. Let me go back and I also want to remind everybody that Ron DeSantis, he passed a bill in 2024, and this is what allowed the grand jury information to be released on, it was like we saw Gouffre versus Maxwell, and that was about 950 pages. And those pages were shocking. And when I say those were shocking, I just mean we learned a lot more than what we thought we knew. However, when those pages were released, a judge gave people mentioned in those filings, I think it was like 90 days or something like that, 90 days to file a motion to get their name redacted, which is why we saw so many redacted names in those 950 pages pertaining to Ghislaine's trial, or I'm sorry, it was depositions between Ghislaine and Virginia, and yeah. So yeah, a lot of it was also BS. I mean, the people that were mentioned, it was Jean-Luc Brunel, who hung himself in a Paris prison after going to jail for Epstein. We saw Stephen Hawking dead. We saw just a lot of people that were deceased. I mean, but again, if that alone is 950 pages, I mean, Pam Bondi, come on, dude, 120 pages. And it's insane. And look here, I can pull up, let me see. If you guys remember, here we are. I'll get this up on the screen. Oh my gosh, I just made this way too big. Okay, remove this. Now you get my face. All right, I'm sharing the screen just to remind everybody these court papers. My gosh, see, this is why it's like, okay. I mean, I'm trying to zoom in on these if you guys can see them without me. I'll make myself smaller. Okay. So, I mean, these are emails, literal emails from Ghislaine. And then it goes down to, I think, I shouldn't say my favorite part. That sounds messed up. But yeah, it's the depositions here. So this is where they talk about the celebrities they saw, who hired them. I mean, and yeah, and if you go back to my recent interview with Ghislaine's lawyer, Arthur Idala, it is just really funny because Arthur's like, I just don't think that Ghislaine holds the keys to the castle like you think she does. She doesn't know everything or everyone. And I'm like, dude, I think I actually said that's bullshit. That's bullshit, Arthur, because please. She facilitated all of it. And he's like, yeah, but that doesn't mean she was in the room when it happened. Yeah, sure. If you want to get technical, was she watching every single encounter? Probably not, but did she probably watch some of them? Yeah, she probably did. So anyway, going back to this, if you guys want to see this here, why don't I drop this into the chat for you, because it is really interesting. And then you can see how detailed that these documents are, and you can see how many pages they are. And then it'll make a lot more sense to you how full of hot air Pam Bondi is. Totally full of hot air. So, I mean, look, I'll eat my words. I always say that. I'll eat my words. I will say I'm wrong. I want the files. I want them. I don't think we're going to get them. And I don't necessarily want flight logs. I don't care about a contact list. I want court documents. I want affidavits. I want to know, I just want to know everything and anything that has to do with his case and his clients in particular. I don't care who he did business with. You guys get it. So just don't BS us. And also, we can wait. Just stop telling us that it's tomorrow. It's tomorrow, because that's not a good way to get us to trust you. So yeah, exactly. Karen Reed motions. One motion is like, yeah, a couple hundred pages. It's ridiculous. And so do I. I want to know who the bad apples are. Okay. So let me see if I have anything more here on Epstein that I had written down. I don't really have anything. I mean, I think it's also interesting and important to remind everybody that when Jeffrey Epstein was first investigated in 2006, and this kind of has something to do with Ron DeSantis passing this bill to get grand jury transcripts and everything, because I think that the judge in the 2006 case, and also the prosecutors, they really should be held accountable, because they allowed Jeffrey Epstein basically to walk and be charged with, I think it was like one count of prostitution, when they had 14-year-olds coming forward and testifying here. So that was pretty bad. They allowed this bad behavior. And yeah, it was the grand jury indicted him on one count of solicitation of prostitution. And that basically was just what a John off the street would face for soliciting a sex worker. And that just wasn't the case. It wasn't the case. They had 14-year-olds testifying. So this judge, Judge Luis Delgado, yeah, that's not cool. He should be called out for that. Definitely called out for that. But yep. All right. So I think that's all I have to say for now. You guys know I'll stay on top of that, but let's get to Ruby Franke. Did you guys watch the documentary it was a 3-part episodic series on Hulu. And I know the story. I know the case. There was a lot that I forgot. But also I looked at this doc through a different lens. Many of you will know that I have been covering a very disturbing scandal out of Utah, which involves satanic ritualistic abuse and the Mormon Church, the Jesus Christ Church of Latter-day Saints. And so watching this through the lens that I now have, I guess, I'm just like, whoa. This is very interesting. This is very eye-opening, and a lot more things make sense to me. It did. I'm sorry. I don't want to group Utah in one category, because I think that's offensive when people do that. And I've done that before. And I always try to say, look, I live in New York City, and corruption is abound, but Utah is different, in my opinion. They disguise themselves as church-fearing God-fearing, very good people. Oh, Sheila, we'll get to this. And thank you so much, Bear Mama. They disguise themselves as these good people that care about children and they care about God. And one thing I'll give to them though is they seem to really believe in what they're saying. And so in the case of Ruby Franke, I felt like she really did believe that her children were possessed by demons somehow. But what I want to point out about Ruby Franke and everyone saying that Jodi Hildebrandt is to blame. I mean, yes, Jodi Hildebrandt is definitely to blame for a lot of this. But please remember, Ruby Franke, before she met Jodi Hildebrandt, she was already not bringing her 6-year-old or her kindergartner's lunch to school, making her starve, thinking that was good parenting. I don't, I mean, that, I don't know if you guys heard the Law and Crime podcast. It's pretty good. It's decent enough, but they go into a lot of her disciplining her children before Jodi. Not only that, but I mean, I believe it was her eldest son, Chad. He played a prank on his little brother. I don't remember what the prank was. It was really not a big deal. And Chad was having problems, I guess. And that's when she said she took his room away and he slept on a beanbag for 7 months. That was before Jodi Hildebrandt. I mean, and yes, that's what I'm trying not to group everyone into one category, but because you're right. Of course, there are good people and bad people within the Mormon church. Of course. I have just been very aware at this point of the bad people. And yes, in my opinion. So I mean there's a lot here, but one of my biggest takeaways here, I'll pull him up right now. Let's see. I don't even know if I want to see this face because this face is really, really going to bug me. But you know what? Let's do it because I would like to make a spectacle here. I would like to make a spectacle of Kevin Franke. I would. Kevin Franke, in my opinion, and people can say what they want. I know that his own son, Chad, is defending him, saying that he was brainwashed. Fine. He was brainwashed. I don't give a shit that he was brainwashed. He was complicit in all of this. And I was excited to watch the documentary so I could hear what Kevin had to say and I could possibly change my opinion about him. Because you guys know when you watch me, I have an opinion. If I'm shown other evidence and I feel like something has changed, then I will change my opinion. I'm not hard-headed. I'm not stubborn like that. Kevin made it worse for me. I always wondered, how the hell did this guy just pick up and leave and allow for this to happen? I don't understand. And yes, Diana, it's hard not to look at this, right? If you know the Hamblin case and you know all the things that are going on in Utah, it's hard not to draw parallels. It really is. Exactly. Stand up for your kids. So Kevin, at first I kind of got it. You know, Ruby is telling him to go through these therapy sessions with Jodi Hildebrandt. He doesn't necessarily want to, but Jodi has a way of making him feel good about himself and making him feel manly and yada yada. And things are great for a while until they're not. I think Jodi Hildebrandt, in my opinion, she developed some kind of crush on Ruby Franke. Ruby was easily influenced, as was her spineless husband. And Jodi could take advantage of them. So Jodi eventually moved into their house, and Ruby had said, and Jodi had convinced Ruby that separation was good and all couples went through separation. And yeah, I mean, it's wild. It's wild how these cults seem to form. I mean, this was Connections, very cultish. That was Jodi's company and her brand. And then Ruby made her way into that company and became a part of it. But she said, look, Kevin, you need to move out and have no contact with the children for a year while I work on disciplining them and casting out these demons with Jody because you're a problem. And right before this happened, Kevin had said he was excited because they truly believed that the world was ending and that the second coming was about to occur. And he said this very seriously. I mean, whatever you want to think, that's completely fine. But I could tell, I was like, okay, he really was brainwashed in that way. But as a father, as a mother, if any of you guys are parents out there, yes, I mean, you know, when your child hurts, when your child needs you. I mean, even though sometimes you know that you should be tougher as a parent, and I try so hard. I want to be tough. I want to be that tough parent, but sometimes you can't help it. You give in to your child because they're your child and you love them so much and you don't want to see them in pain. You don't want to see them hurt, even though you might think, okay, well, it would be better if I didn't swoop in and fix this problem for them and they fixed it themselves. You can't help it. You try your best. But Kevin, he said, okay. He said, okay, I'll move out and I will have no contact with my children. And he describes sitting down with his children, giving them hugs, telling them that he is leaving, and he describes the pain in their eyes. I'm going to cry because I get so mad. He describes the pain in their eyes and how his kids are hugging them, basically saying, don't go, okay? And Ruby is sitting there taking pictures and thinking to herself, God, this is such good content. Meanwhile, Kevin knows, okay? He sees it. He said this. He actually said on camera, I saw, like, he saw the pain in their eyes. He saw the terror in their eyes, these kids hugging him. They knew, okay? And he knew. And what did he do? He left. He got up and he left. Meanwhile, Sherry Franke, the eldest daughter, is away at college. She had already left. Ruby decides that she wants to disown her. And Sherry doesn't understand why. And it's painful. That's also painful. And partially, I believe it's because Ruby and Jody could not control Sherry because she wasn't in the house and she was an adult. So yeah, let's just disown her. Fine. Fine. But Sherry reaches out to her dad. She reaches out to her dad for help. She doesn't understand. And what does this guy do? What does this sorry excuse for a dad do? He blocks her. He blocks his own daughter when she texted him. Yeah. And he sat there when Ruby was arrested and called him. He picks up on the first ring. He talks about how he's so excited. And he says that this is the woman I love. I mean, when he got to the police station and they are telling him about the abuse that his children suffered at the hands of his wife, I love this comment. It's true. He does. He hides like a chicken shit. Thank you. Oh, God. Yes, Sheila, the unhearting of the text. He liked a text at one point from Sherry and then he unhearted it. I mean, yeah, there's so much. There's so much. But he doesn't believe. He does not believe what the police are telling him about what's going on with his kids. It's insane. And he seems way more concerned about getting back together with Ruby than his own children. Watch the doc for yourself. Please form your own opinions. That is my opinion. He was more concerned with Ruby and getting back with her than his own kids. And he also, so here's another thing. I am so happy that the kids are safe, right? They're safe. They are getting therapy and they're getting help. But as far as I can see, they are in the foster system. And I don't like that. That's very sad. But I also think that their dad is not a fit father or a fit parent. And he has filed a motion in court stating that Jody Hildebrandt should pay for his children's medical expenses, their medical care, everything like that, which goes back to me thinking that he is blaming everything on Jody Hildebrandt when that is not the case, okay? That is not the case. Let's go back. Ruby, you guys didn't give your two youngest kids a Christmas and you made them watch the other kids open presents and you wouldn't. I mean, that was all you guys. That was all Ruby. The starving, the taking away the bedroom. Yeah, that was Ruby. Jody escalated it, sure. But Ruby, she was the one that pushed this forward. She kept a journal. Did you not see her journal? How disgusting that was? I mean, disgusting. Sure, he did file for divorce. Yeah, I mean, I felt like he kind of had no choice, really. I mean, but yeah, I'm so disgusted, and I am just like I was in shock. It was truly shocking at how many people failed these children. How many people? And Ruby, I really think that she needs to stay in prison for at least 20 years. I do. I think that the psychological damage that her poor children are still going through is unspeakable. The physical, I mean, I'm going to pull up this. I think it was, what is the date here? So I did a podcast. It was March of 2024. So, oh my gosh, almost a year ago. And I interviewed Juju Chang from 2020 on ABC. And we discussed this case, and Juju gave her thoughts on it. And I love her. I think she's a great journalist. And I can play some of this podcast for you guys because I did go into a lot of detail that I found in court docs. And if you need like a little bit of a refresher, I can also drop this. And you know what? I'll do that as well. I'll drop this in the episode notes right here. Oh, yeah. I hope she's having a horrible time in prison. Most child abusers do have horrible times in prison, as they should. But I'll play some of this for you right now. I can also, you guys know I love to speed it up, but it tells a bit of the story, and I can shed some light on what Juju and her team found when they were reporting on it, because they actually at the time had access to body cam footage that no one else had yet. So here, let me play some of this.
I think he's been detained. He's obviously covered in one.
Welcome to the Outlier Podcast. I'm your host, Lauren
wait.
Conlin, and that was a clip from the 911 call made by Jody Hildebrandt's neighbor when mommy vlogger Ruby Franke's youngest son escaped.
Can you guys hear, by the way? Sometimes I can't tell if podcasts play. Let me know if you can hear. And that the beginning was part of the 911 call, which breaks my heart because you basically hear a very elderly man who seems very tough, very together. You hear his voice break. You hear his voice break. Okay, thank you, Oasis. Here, I'll just play, part of it, give a little recap here.
Escaped from Jody's house where he was being forced to live. And this past Friday, March 22nd, ABC's 2020 aired a special on the disgraced mommy vlogger, Ruby Franke. And if you are not familiar with the Ruby Franke child abuse case, it is so disturbing. So Ruby, who is a Mormon Utah mom, and her business partner, Jody Hildebrandt, were each sentenced in December to 1 to 30 years for 4 counts each of child abuse. 2 counts per Ruby's son, who was 10
and
at the time.
I corrected myself. It was 4 to 30 years, not 1 to 30 years. Lauren, dummy. Doing too many things. Just kidding.
And 2 counts for her daughter, who was 8. And this is just such a tragic, twisted case of greed and mind control. And it's just infuriating. And in the 2020 episode, Jody Hildebrandt.
And sorry, I'll stop for a second, but I can already see that my take on this case has changed so much in a year. Where I said mind control, I don't necessarily think it was all mind control at this point. I think it was a huge part of it, but I feel very differently after covering the Hamblin case and Utah in general.
Hildebrandt's niece speaks out because she also endured horrible abuse at the hands of Jodi. And she refers to Jodi as this master manipulator, which seems completely true. And everything that she stated about her abuse lines up perfectly with what the younger two Franke children said happened to them at the hands of Jodi and Ruby. And oh my gosh, these two children, it is horrible. They actually show pictures that I had never seen before on the 2020 episode of these kids who were like skin and bones. You just cannot imagine as a parent doing this to your children. And they go into some of the abuse and it's awful. I mean, her youngest son had to jump on a trampoline for 8 hours at a time in the hot sun while his mom poked him with a cactus if he didn't jump fast enough or hard enough. And it's mind-blowing, really, how somebody could do this to their own child. And Ruby has 4 other children, and 2 of the kids are no longer kids. They're technically adults, but the other 2 are minors, and they were also not okay, but not as bad as the youngest 2. I believe her middle daughter was actually found cleaning one of Ruby's friends' houses at the time that her younger brother escaped and went to a neighbor's house to call 911. But we'll get into that a bit more with Juju Chang in my interview. But really quickly, I got to tell you about Chad, the eldest son. And I just know about what happened to him from following this story. Chad, at one point, had his bed and his room taken away for about 8 months for literally just playing a prank on his younger brother. And he was forced to sleep on a beanbag. Can you imagine? And Ruby and her husband at the time, Kevin, sent him to one of those troubled teen youth camps, which, as most people know, is just a terrible form of torture for teens. And when they picked him up from that camp, I will add, he had multiple broken bones. So it was clear that Chad's troubles most likely stemmed from the fact that he was sick of having his mom have a camera in his face at all times. But let's back up to the beginning. Ruby and Kevin Franke have 4
And that, oh my gosh, you guys, do you remember if you watched it, there was a part where Ruby is filming Chad and he's so young and he's sick of the camera. He's sick of being part of this 8 passengers bullcrap. And she says, fake being happy. She's so creepy and disgusting. And she's like, fake being happy. And he's like, I just don't know if I can. I just don't know if I can. And I was like, oh my gosh. And then she gets mad and you're like, oh, this is so sad. It's awful. But yeah, I felt like Chad was, God, he was so damaged and he really was trying to put on a brave face, I think, for his dad and for his siblings in the doc. But yeah, I feel for him.
children, and they began vlogging on YouTube in 2015, and they called themselves the 8 Passengers. And this vlog got really popular, the show. I mean, they had 2 million subscribers at one point, and Ruby Franke was very open about saying, everything I'm doing for my children in terms of discipline is going to be on camera for everyone to see. She was truly becoming this mommy influencer, and she loved the attention, and they were making a lot of money. A lot. But in 2020, some of the viewers became concerned with Ruby's discipline towards her children. There was, of course, the beanbag. And then Ruby documents that one day her 6-year-old daughter in kindergarten, who is supposed to pack her own lunch and be responsible for that, forgot it. And the school called Ruby and they asked Ruby to bring her daughter lunch. And Ruby refused to bring the lunch. And she also told the school not to give her daughter any food. And then the viewers noticed that there seemed be a lot of starvation punishment for these kids. Oh, you don't do your chores, you don't get a meal. And Ruby would get so angry for the smallest things. Like an 8-year-old boy leaving his socks outside would entail a punishment that involved physical labor. And this is just not a big deal. And these kids, I mean, the amount of chores they had was unreal. Their home life just wasn't fun. And at one point, they were involved in this really scary car accident, and viewers couldn't believe it when Ruby's children are visibly shaken. They are visibly scared. And Ruby whips out her cell phone and starts filming them. And so the next thing you know, there is a change.org petition calling for an investigation into Ruby Franke for child abuse. And over 18,000 people signed it. And Ruby Franke makes the decision to stop vlogging. And then she meets Jodi Hildebrandt, who at the time is this marriage counselor. And Jodi Hildebrandt begins counseling Ruby and Kevin. Well, then the next thing you know, Ruby and Jodi are becoming business partners. And they start the brand and the website Connections. And that's with an X in the middle. I have it in the episode notes, so you can read that, exactly how it's spelled. And now Ruby in Connections is claiming to be this life coach. And now you've got Jodi essentially telling Ruby that, hey, Kevin's got to go. This is best for your marriage to take time apart. And so Ruby tells Kevin this. And she also tells him that it's best for him not to have any contact with their children. And shockingly, Kevin agrees. And he leaves the home, he leaves the family, and he has no contact with his children for a year until he's called by the police in August of 2023 when his youngest son escapes from Jodi Hildebrandt's house, where he and his younger sister were living at the time and being horrifically abused. And you will hear from my guest, Juju Chang, who is an ABC journalist, how shocked Kevin was to get this call. He did not believe it. And now Ruby Franke would keep a diary of what was going on with those kids. And again, my guest for today, ABC journalist Juju Chang, who interviews many of the subjects, that were involved in this case on the 2020 episode for Friday, March 22nd. She'll go into further detail about all of this, but Ruby had her kids living with Jody for whatever disciplinary program they thought was going to be good for these poor kids and good for them to make money on connections. And the two younger kids, they were starved, beaten, and their wounds were literally dressed with cayenne pepper, honey, and duct tape. They were forced to perform manual labor and not given water. And if they snuck any water, they were beaten for it. And then again, in August of 2023, Ruby's youngest son, who's 10 at the time, escapes, and he runs to a neighbor's house, and that neighbor calls 911. And as you heard from that clip at the beginning, that call is heartbreaking. He says the boy is emaciated. He's clearly been wounded, and someone needs to come right away. Now, I'm going to stop right here, and I'm going to play my interview with Juju Chang, where you will hear more details of what happened next and her experience in covering this heartbreaking case.
Hey, Lauren. I'm very well. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much. I'm very, very anxious for tonight for the Ruby Franke episode.
Yeah, it's a lot to dig into, I have to say.
I'm just curious, did your team reach out to Ruby and Jody and they're just not doing interviews yet?
They are absolutely not doing interviews yet. I suspect that they might down the road, but at this point, they've just been sentenced to anywhere from 4 to 30 years in prison for aggravated child abuse. And I think Ruby especially has had a huge change of heart from the moment she was arrested to the moment she was sentenced. So my guess is she's still processing a lot.
Yeah, I think a lot of us could tell when she said something like, with my deepest regrets, guilty. I had never heard that in a courtroom before. I don't know about you.
Right, exactly. I mean, she started, that's the beauty of tonight's show in 2020 is we got a bunch of new evidence that's never been seen before. And some of it is the interrogation video right after she's arrested, right? And she's kind of like the 1,000-yard stare, right? She doesn't say anything. She's like kind of glassy-eyed.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that was crazy. When she is being interrogated by the police and they showed it on 2020 and they showed it in part of this Hulu clip, she just sits there and she doesn't say anything. And she's got the face that you want to punch. I'm sorry, I'm not inciting violence. You guys know I'm not like that, but I can't help it. There's just like this resting face, and maybe people think that about me. I don't know, but I just want to. It's like just say something. Just say something. You are so disgusting. Face that you want to punch.
Jailhouse phone calls, which is also part of this new evidence. She's saying to her husband, like in denial, like, oh, this is a witch hunt. This is like, I've been set up, all this stuff. And then over time, you slowly start to understand that the gravity of her kid's situation. I mean, literally, they spent 10 days in the hospital for severe malnutrition, right? They were emaciated. They had wounds all over their body, deep gashes in their ankles and wrists from being hogtied and handcuffed. And just like this catalog of abuse that was horrible. And it slowly like starts to change her mind. And even Kevin, the ex-husband, who had been pushed out of the house for a year, like initially he's like, oh, I'm going to stand by my wife, blah, blah, blah. And over time, he starts to realize the horror of what's happened. I mean, his interrogation room video, he's like, what are you talking about? You're describing a horror movie when he's describing the wounds of his children. He's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And within a couple of months, he filed for divorce.
Right.
So you get this of how much his mindset has changed.
And I think a lot of people who don't maybe know the story or the case really well, that is their first question. Well, where was the kid's father? How did he not know about this? And why was he not in contact with them? And I've personally never seen a husband just submit like that in my experience, but I'm not saying, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying that he's. No,
totally. Well, two things. All the moms in my producing team were like, how could a mother do this to her own child, right? Like the severe wounds. The dads on the shoot, meanwhile, were saying, how does a dad not have contact with his children for a year?
Exactly.
And the reason, all things point in a way, according to all the investigators and all the witnesses that we spoke to, former clients, et cetera, all roads lead to Jody Hildebrand, who became a business partner of Ruby Franke, right? And Jody is a quote-unquote marriage therapist. She becomes Ruby Franke and Kevin's marriage therapist. And her first edict is, Kevin, you need to leave the house and have no contact with your children for a year. And I turned to some of the dads around me. I was like, would you do that? And they're like, no.
No.
But that is how much control Jody had over Kevin. And he literally, the children will attest to it. He packed up, left the house. Jody Hildebrand, the marriage counselor, moves into the Franke house.
Right.
And they embark on this bizarre partnership that ends up with both of them pleading guilty.
So in the documentary, they do allude that Jody and Ruby possibly had a relationship, a sexual relationship. They don't come outright and say it, but the eldest daughter had some thoughts. And the fact that Jody was sleeping in this room in the house and Ruby was saying, oh, I'm trying to cast these demons out of Jody. So she had to sleep in the room with her. Apparently there were lots of candles and massage oils and whatever else. And I could definitely see that happening, in my opinion. That is a very solid possibility that they were having a lesbian relationship.
To aggravated child abuse.
Yeah. I mean, it's literally it's mind blowing. I mean, like you said, I'm sorry, but Kevin, you're spineless, and I just feel like I'm not necessarily blaming him, but I'm just so disgusted by that that this dad who appeared to be so involved on this vlog, this family vlog, all of a sudden just packs up and leaves. And
no, it is fascinating, and you have to wonder sort of how. And we spoke to other clients of Jodi, right, who said she had this pattern of behavior where she was able to separate wives from husbands, accuse the husbands of things they hadn't done. It was incredibly. They described it as master manipulator, right? And in many ways, Kevin fell victim to this as well. And I think there's a sense that he really. I mean, you can tell from the interrogation videos, he has no idea what the investigator's talking about when he's first called in and told that his children are in a hospital, right? And what you see over time is all of these heroes basically stepping in along the way, starting with the 911 caller who discovers this child.
And also, if you recall, there was a part in the documentary where the neighbors texted Kevin and said, there are 4 cop cars outside of your house. And he blocked them. I mean, sorry. Again, I don't give a crap if he was manipulated, if somebody exercised some kind of mind control with Kevin. Snap out of it when it comes to your kids. You are an adult, okay? These are your children. You procreated, okay? You have a responsibility to these children. If someone tells you there are 4 cop cars at your house and you have no contact with your family and you have no idea what's going on, you're going to block those people? That's sick. You are a twisted, sick individual, Kevin.
Literally bursts into tears, just describing the boy. He's clearly emaciated. He's got duct tape on his hand. He's been abused, and he breaks down emotionally. And and the prosecutor, I talked to, said, listen, they immediately get him food and water. They immediately recognize this child is in grave danger. The cops are immediately dispatched to the home. The cop who I spoke to, Tobler, Sergeant Tobler's his name. He goes running in, guns drawn, right, adrenaline pumping, and he comes across a second child hiding in a closet. And you see his body camera video tonight on 2020, and he immediately drops to his knees. And I said to him, you went into daddy mode. And he goes, yeah, I went from cop mode to daddy mode. And then he spent more than 2 hours sitting there with that child, scared out of her mind, because she had been told all these horrible things about what would happen if they were discovered, right? And the only thing that coaxes her out is he orders pizza.
I did not know that. Wow.
It's incredible. And the video, you'll see it tonight. It's new. It's all new. Yeah. And, so and then you meet I met this prosecutor, Eric, who's just a lovely human being, and so you see the good side of humanity while you're exploring the darkness, right? Yeah. And he said, look, we have all this evidence. It mostly her diaries. And this is when you get a real sense of Ruby Franke's mindset, right? She's literally cataloging day by day the abuses, everything from holding her son's head underwater. She's poking them with cactuses. She's making them sweat and do manual labor out in the sweltering desert heat to the point where they get severe sunburn, and just on and on and on, right? And she's denying them food for days on end, calling them evil, and they're like Satan, and you're possessed. And that's when the language starts to shift, and you can see she's justifying this heinous, clearly criminal behavior under the guise of invoking the name of God and invoking the name of the devil, and et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. And you just see her lose her way.
I mean, no, you're right. I agree with everything you said. And this is absolutely a case of greed. I mean, she saw how much money she was making with YouTube. And, obviously Jodi saw that too. It's incredibly selfish. And I mean, and you said it, that 911 call was, I mean, you could tell.
I actually don't necessarily know if I believe it was greed anymore on Ruby's part. I think on Jodi's part, it was greed. And to use Jodi's word, it was lust. I think maybe Jodi felt lustful towards Ruby, but I'm not sure at this point if it was greed for Ruby. I think she was a truly twisted and sick individual. And it's kind of just she didn't really seem to care about her followers after, she was quote unquote canceled for being a bad mom. So I don't agree with what I said a year ago. Let me look at this. Yeah. And Afton, you're right. She used her religion to justify her sadism. And that's what I feel like a lot of people that I've come across in Utah that are part of the LDS church. And again, not all of them. I don't want to group everybody, but that's what a lot of them do. And it's not necessarily just the Mormons. It's, you could say that for a lot of different religions, I guess. And it's really upsetting. And I say that just as a Christian woman, it sucks. And it gives other religions a really bad name and a really bad rap. So, yeah, I'm not above saying, I don't think I was necessarily on the mark with the greed, but you guys might think differently. If you guys think it was a little bit of greed on Ruby's part, let me know. I think it was more the greed and lust on Jody's part, the control. And I think Ruby was easily manipulated. However, she was already on that war path of being a really sick individual, a very sick mother.
I mean, I don't know what this guy looks like, but I like to picture people, from their voices. And I pictured this big burly man seeing this child and just breaking down, just losing it.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's when you see, they are a litmus test for all of us, right? Like what they see and how they react is how decent, normal people should react, right?
Yes,
and
yes.
I think that's when it just it brings you back down to like, okay, there are good people out there, et cetera, et cetera. It's just
Yeah.
moments where you meet people, right, and you realize Jodi Hildebrand is the exception. I also interviewed one of her nieces who had been subjected to very similar kind of abuse like a decade earlier. And the pattern of behavior is very clear, not just with her former client, but with this niece who said she was onto these, severe punishments for a long time.
Yeah, I did see that. And I saw that she was one of the first that spoke out. And I also saw that Ruby Franke's eldest daughter, I think, everybody following the story remembers when she posted on Instagram with the police cars in front of the house. And she's just like, finally. And everybody was like, oh my gosh, so nobody is surprised here.
Exactly. And even it's amazing how even Ruby Franke's family, she has sisters who many of whom felt that she was going the wrong way and was trying to, sort of.
I don't remember.
Get her attention, really, and I think there are many instances where we see people around us, maybe not this extreme, obviously, but going the wrong way, right? Like going down the wrong path. And it's cases like these where you realize, sometimes you do have to speak up. It's the followers on her 8-passenger YouTube channel that started calling her out her behavior, right?
Yes.
And so it's that kind of stuff,
Right.
Sherry called fun for a welfare check on her kids, on her siblings, right? It's like people start standing up and saying, this is not okay.
Yeah. And that is what's so incredible. You've made a really good point. It's because she put her entire life on the internet. And, I've been saying this, like we as a society are all of us are going down the wrong path here with social media. I mean, this all stemmed from, like I said, her selfishness and the need for clicks, the need for views, the need for followers. I mean, it's not real life. It's it obviously serves a purpose, but look at this. Her children will never be the same, Juju, never. And it absolutely breaks my heart. And I want to thank you for your reporting on this.
Oh, you're so sweet to say, Lauren. It's an important story, and I'm so glad you're highlighting it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. And so people can watch it tonight.
Okay, so I've got commercials and whatnot, but yeah, I really I can't believe how much my opinion has changed, I guess, since recording that episode and learning a little bit more about Utah and some of the things that go on. And I do feel like mind control is a thing when it comes to children in Utah. Within the church, in some instances, I do feel like, and I am going to, if you follow my coverage of Utah, I interviewed a forensic psychologist on Friday, and I'm going to clip some of what he said about mind control, repressed memory syndrome, false memory syndrome. But I don't want to give too much away, but just to kind of put it out there, it's really up in the air because it's one of those things where it's like a battle of the experts. There's plenty of research out there that says repressed memory syndrome exists and people can dig up these horrible traumas that they've pushed to the back of their mind based on one trigger. But there's also room for false memory syndrome as well. So it's a battle. And, he made it very clear to me, it's a case by case situation. Each case is different. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And like I said, I'll put it all together later today, hopefully to get out by tomorrow. But this is interesting. So I don't remember Ruby's siblings. And that's funny. You read somewhere that Ruby's sisters described her as jealous, paranoid, self-centered, and competitive. Could totally see that. She has all the makings of a narcissist. But yeah, you would think that some grandparents, aunts and uncles would maybe step in and be like, what's going on? I don't know the deal with that or what really went down. That's super interesting. But I love hearing everybody else's thoughts on this and I feel bad. So when I was watching it on Saturday, I had family over. And so my kids and my nephews, they were just in and out of the living room when me and my mom and my sister were watching it. And every once in a while, they would come in and they were just like very fixated on Ruby yelling at her kids. Like it was one of those things where they just could not believe that a mom was on camera screaming at her kids like that over nothing really. And it's what this documentary does. It doesn't depict every instance of horrific abuse that she inflicted on the kids. If you want to get into those awful sordid details, your best bet is to go over to the Law and Crime podcast. And not because you want to hear about the details of what these kids went through, but so you can understand how truly sick Ruby was, how sick of a person she was, how terrified. I mean, I remember there was something about her youngest daughter and nail polish or makeup where she was just terrified of Ruby. And Ruby has this whole discipline on and this was, I think, the daughter, she shaved her head. It's just it's sick. It's sad. But yeah, my kids were just like fascinated because they were like, oh my gosh, I've never seen a mother do this, and I eventually was like, all right, get out of here. You're not supposed to be watching this. But yeah, let me see. Oh, Ruby's whole family did the vlogs, including her parents. Yeah, I had no idea at all. But anyway, there was so much I wanted to say. I was so angry watching it. I was so angry about Casey Anthony. I was so angry about the Epstein files. And I'm not an angry person. I am a passionate person, I guess. So I wanted to jump on and talk about all of this with my favorite people in the chat, because you guys always have so much good stuff to add. And I love hearing your opinions. And I love when you guys push back on me, because I always say, like, I don't think it's fun to sit there and have a conversation with somebody that agrees with everything that you say. I think it's way more interesting to hear the other side of things and other aspects from people and their opinion. So never be afraid to say, well, I don't agree with that, Lauren. I think that it's XYZ, because I love to hear that. And I'm always nice about it, I hope. But I will tell you if I disagree or I don't disagree. But yeah, I mean, oh my gosh, the people they chose to release the Epstein. No, I don't even know how real that is and what these people are seeing. I don't necessarily believe that the influencer crap or certain influencers got these documents and whatever. But yeah. Yes, you are an opinionated group, and I love it, MJ. And I do, Oasis, I love it. And yeah, I think that you're right. It is good to see people have the same opinions about really bad people. Totally agree. That is very true. And yeah, there's a lot going on this week. I know that the Lori Vallow case in Arizona starts, that murder case. And yeah, it's that should be wild. So I need to dive into that as well. Thank you so much, Sheila. And like I said, I'm so glad that you could all be here. And I'm sure I'll be back for another live. Jarrett and I should be doing a live for sure on Wednesday, and I'll have a few podcast episodes out this week as well. So thanks for joining me, guys. It was really fun to get all of this off my chest, I must say. So stay safe, stay vigilant, and I will. Oh, Afton, before we go, Kansas moms hearings. The next hearing for the Kansas moms case is in April. So I believe every single defendant except for one goes back to court in April. I need to double check on that, but I don't want to jinx anything. But I should be discussing that case with the guys at True Crime Garage this week, which would be awesome. It'll be pre-recorded. True Crime Garage they're amazing. I've been listening to them for a while, and I'm really excited to share Veronica and Jillian's story and to just raise more awareness around that case and the alleged corruption that I feel like has been going on there in that area. So anyway, all right, guys, now I'm going for real. I'm going to go work on some stuff, and I will catch you all later. Thanks again. Bye.